technology was an interesting part of creating this work, Gina, or this exhibition, Gina, or this video, Gina, and you know, what is Gina? And but technology, yeah, kind of accidentally became like a bit about like, you know, a component to the work, or maybe a story that you could read in it. I filmed parts of it on just a really low, like bottom of the range digital SLR that I've had for a long time, and I've only predominantly ever used it for video because I don't actually really know how to use it for photography that well. And then, but it's really clunky, and there's like all like it was nice for like, it's beautiful for shots that you do close up and you've got you know, getting a nice depth of field or focusing details on a face. But then I gradually found that I was incorporating lots of photography that I just filmed on my iPhone. So lots of the like nature shots, which are really like crisp, some of them. I just filmed on like bushwalks or out at a club, or, you know, so. And then I borrowed a friend's camera for one part of it too, and that's really, you know, and that was really beautiful, and I used a tripod there, and some parts are handheld. So when it all came together, it was just like a collage, like I said earlier, like, yeah, like I had spliced everything and put it together. So I called the whole show, when I, like a first iteration of this work, which I finished in like not long ago, it had like a really whimsy poetic title, like, you know, from the beginning of this year into the next or something, because it was made over like, you know, a long year, because it's really hard to coordinate people when you're busy all the time. And but progressively I was just calling it Gina all the time. The main character's name is Gina, and it was played by my closest friend Sheena, so it was like a joke, like Gina and Sheena. But then, I don't know, there was something about a muse being really important about making this work, having a muse, which was Gina and Sheena, and then Gina being a vessel for carrying a story, and Gina being a structure for a story, and then Gina being a structure for an exhibition. Like, the whole thing was just like branded and then coated, and was like Gina was a vessel. So it became less about Gina, this woman, or maybe it was her and she carried the whole thing. Like, I think it's really nice that it has a life force, a human life force, you know. I think the medium, when I was studying, I always felt like there was a drive for the concept to go first. Like, every artist has their like small manifesto or reason to making, and but I think an image is always at the foreground in my head, and then I think with anyone making any imagery or work, their concept, for me, I think the concept will always follow from that and will be breathed through whatever that image is, or however they construct the actual work that they are. So yeah, for me, I'll always be struck by an image or an idea of an image, or I want to make something, and then like all making process is different to the starting image in your head, but it, you know, and then the concept will come through, I guess. So Gina was an idea, I guess, but it was also a set of images in my head too, and it was the first time I've ever attempted filmmaking, and I kind of worked off set images, and then that, like, there wasn't so much a narrative, but there were images of this woman, Gina, or the people that interact with her, and a part of her and her story, and they, all those images together create an idea, or like a flowing film, or yeah, time-based thing. I wanted to make Gina as a challenge for constructing blatant narrative, or making an artwork which was there in the face of the viewer as a narrative product, or it was storytelling. All the message was there and it was being delivered. I guess I'm really interested, I like art as something that is forced upon someone, and I didn't feel like yeah, that's just the way that I read images, and that's the way I will tell an image. And so yeah, I wanted to have the challenge of writing a narrative, but with Gina, I did no writing. There was no like, there were kind of small moments of writing, like, but I would never finish writing a scene. And so it became like another way of forming narrative through improvisation and through just filming people, bodies, scenery, and kind of just sensory things. So there's like images of a bee on a flower, or waves crashing, or a viewpoint landing through clouds. So, and what I was realizing as I had the images was that I was forming a new kind of narrative, and it was much looser to the one that I went into it. Gina was quite different to what I've done before, I think. I've always wanted to use film, like, I'm by no means a filmmaker. I don't have any background in, I don't have like a really deep mask interest in film history, and you know, like that really like bravado kind of like knowledge of like every director, and I'm not like, oh, my practice is deeply rooted in pop cultural imagery from, you know, the 90s, 80s, or like Australian like film and television. I think that kind of comes like unconsciously anyway, but so I felt like filmmaking became like, I wanted to use filmmaking as like a model or a means of presentation, or like short film as like a canvas, or a type of like as a material. That's what it was, yeah. So and like I said, I wanted narrative was a challenge, like, and so I really wanted to push Gina out of me, and make her movie, and stuff that I'd done beforehand with video was always really kind of sort of apathetic, and it would like imbue like a moody kind of vibe, or it was neutral. It didn't really say, like, I remember doing like silent videos similar to Gina with people in it when I was at art school, and it was kind of, I was making a point or telling a story, but Gina was like, I wanted like through dialogue and like scenery to really be like, directive in the storytelling. I guess something that's continued on in my practice forever is just, I've got a fascination with the human figure, and the presence of human, and like a lack of presence as well, and the way the human body is evocative of mood. I've kind of, my work is often tactile. I have worked a lot with like in sculptural mediums and fabric earlier on when I wanted to start being an artist, but I've always used video as well as like kind of like, in my head it's the final medium, encapsulating a human figure in video. Gina kind of marked a shift. Like in 2015, it was essentially the only thing that I made. I mean, I would make little things in my studio, like sculptures or attempt a painting, but it was just like, they were kind of gestural things to pass the time, and they didn't become objects that I would like do and then be like, this is part of my practice and this is like a work that I'm going to exhibit, because they were kind of like material exercises, but like putting together a group of people and using human figure in my work through video and through making Gina was where the work was coming from, because there's so much rich material in just like one person, like Sheena playing Gina, and you know, the two figures in the film, the two blonde characters who are kind of like meant to be friends of hers, but seemingly that also could be part of her unconscious state. So when I went away overseas and did a studio residency overseas, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna make work here. But I was like really lonely in the studio because I didn't know anybody in the city I was in, and I was really poor because I was living overseas, and I essentially realized I was like, well, like what facilitates my practice home is like an energy that's made by people. Sounds like a bit stupid, but it's really what I like love most about my work. It's not like collaborative, and it's not like a collective thing. Like it's still like me being directive in what my ideas are, but I want people in it, and I think people are really like responsive to that. And Gina was really great because they weren't performers, they weren't actors. I mean, there was a couple of people who were actors in it. There's a lot of artists in it, but just kind of my contemporaries and peers, and they were really generous about performing, and there's something about a camera being near you and having a loose narrative given to you that people are like, oh, okay, I'll act, or making an environment like a pretend party, people perform in it, and they break down this, I don't know, all those signals that the bodies give out in Gina are really part of that story, or like the work, just like bodies being insecure objects. I'll say Gina marked a shift in my practice until I've made more work that's video, or that I've, but Gina has certainly kind of just like lubricated something in my practice where I'm like, this is like, I'm gonna like, I've got movement, and I can, I really was so like speeded up on the like people wanting to work with me, and then collaborating, and it being like, just seeing ideas really visually like on a screen.